Jen, we're glad to have you at the Phoenix Rising podcast. We have actually met before. You helped us develop a probiotic. But first, you helped me start on my journey when my son was diagnosed with ADHD. Healing Without Hurting was one of the first resources and books that I had found. And I'm excited to have you as a guest on our podcast.
That's great. Thank you for having me. And it's nice to hear that, people actually found my book, because it was a journey just to get it out there to people. So it was exciting for me to hear that people in, other states, other countries were actually reading it. Because you do it as a labor of love. You don't realize anyone's going to actually read it,
Yeah, I can empathize with I think that a lot of people that get into paths that you and I have chosen are because you're personally touched by it. Like, right. I didn't dream of the job that I have now in nutrition. I was a patent attorney, and I got involved in this because my son was diagnosed with ADHD, and we wanted to look at healthy ways of addressing his issue, which is one of the first things I wanted to talk about. The name of the book, Healing Without Hurting. What is the story behind that?
Yeah, so I wrote the book first. And then try to come up with a title. I mean, I had working titles, a bunch of them, but, healing has always been something that's been in my vernacular. And, recognizing all the dangers that the medications could potentially cause, I felt like it was actually hurting the body rather than healing it. So it's actually one of my very good friends who's actually a cranial sacral therapist, and her and I were having coffee one day, and it was actually her that said, what do you think about healing without hurting? And, because we were going back and forth, I was like, that's it, and so it's almost like when you're going to name your first child and the name comes out, you go, yes, that's the one, right? So
it's funny how
catchy.
Like you brainstorm something, anything, and then when it's like, you just know. You don't need to think about it anymore.
No, and I didn't know it would become like a brand. Like, it's like Healing Without Hurting. Like, oh yeah, I've heard of that book. Or, it just becomes... and I didn't realize too when I published the book that the title actually belongs to the publisher, Healing Without Hurting.
Interesting.
So that's the whole thing. I probably would have self-published the book if I would have known more about publishing, and if I would have known how much the publishing world would change with AI and everything else that's happened since writing the book. So it's interesting.
No, it's a good title. It's catchy, and it's really pithy to the point. I was just thinking that if you went to a marketing person, say, give me a title or a brand, you'd pay tens of thousands of dollars to get something that on point.
Exactly. And we know some people are very upset about the title because, hurting, what do you mean? And and they haven't even read the book, so they don't understand what I'm talking about. So sometimes people, the harmful effects of pharmaceuticals, it gets everyone up in a little bit of a defensive mode. And sometimes
we tend to be a polarized society right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm just like, no, we're not curing anyone. We want to maximize potential. Because I get that too. Like, you're trying to cure my child. My child's perfectly fine the way he is. I'm like, oh my God, I would never want to fix my kid. Like, it's more about just maximizing his potential. Can we get him to a point where he's functioning in class and doesn't need a medication? Wouldn't that be great? So it's been an interesting journey as far as, how people perceive and receive the book and the title.
Before jumping into the book and what you have been involved in, where are you coming from? What's your background? How did you get involved in mental health?
So, I was in my 20s, I graduated college with an English degree. English and political science, which is wild because I don't know what I thought I was doing with that, except maybe going to law school, which would not have been a good idea.
No, it's not.
Not a good idea. And then I ended up working in marketing for a company that needed me to be a technical writer because I'm a really good writer. So it was really fascinating that at that time I didn't recognize, why am I doing this job, right? I feel like the universe takes us places, and sometimes at the time we don't understand why. And now I look back and go, of course, I had to learn how to become a technical writer so that when I read 150 medical journals, I could actually turn it into layman's terms.
Yeah.
Because that's what I did on the floor with the engineers when I worked for, high voltage measurement and testing companies, like completely unrelated, but like I had to take engineering terms and turn them into manuals and things for parents and people to understand how to use.
That's a good skill to have.
So it was a great skill. At the time, again, I didn't understand why I was doing that. Another interesting thing that happened during that time was they had given me 28 shares of their, it's kind of funny. They gave me 28 shares, which was equal to about $28 for Christmas bonus, because I was making $28,000 a year. I guess that's how they figured it out. $1 per thousand you were making. So I remember leaving the company and they said, do me a favor, Jen, like a couple of the guys that worked with me, they're like, don't sell. And I said, okay. Totally forgot about it, right? All of a sudden, while I'm writing the book, my publisher says to me, you need a medical editor. And I was like, oh, crap. I'm like, how much is this going to cost me? I'm like, I just, So anyway, found a medical editor that would be willing to read my book because, she was an MD and she was very mainstream. So I was a little concerned about how she'd receive it. Come to find out, it was going to cost me like $15,000 for her to edit the book. Well, don't you know, like in the mail, I receive a notification that I have $15,000 of unclaimed funds from some obscure company that I worked for in 1997, right? That had sold off and sold off.
That's
and sold
really
off,
cool how things work.
right?
Like that.
Again, universe. I was like, well, that means I have to get this published. That's it. I'm getting it done.
Yeah.
So, people ask me, how long did it take you? I feel like I had a lot of intervention from like angels, ancestors. I don't know, but I wrote it in about a year and a half.
But before even writing it, you had worked in the like with psychologists, psychiatrists like that.
Yeah, so I was in the medical field myself. I worked with psychiatrists. I had graduated with a master's degree in psychotherapy. I'd gotten my license. Once I had my license, I was able to work.
Getting ready for pharma.
Getting ready for pharma, and it was unbelievable what I saw. Working with psychiatrists that didn't even know the client's name half the time. I had to be like, hey, Mike's coming. He has a blue jacket on, blah, 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 crazy. And I was noticing that everyone was getting put on medications for whatever sales rep came in the week before. So we would get lavish dinner parties, trips places, all our office stuff was supplied by these pharmaceutical companies. And so we were being educated on top of my, education and grad school, which wasn't pharmacological, but I would be getting a lot of education on why the efficacy, why certain people take certain medications for ADHD, autism, spectrum kind of things, which was mostly anxiety disorders and all of that. And I just couldn't believe we'd watch side effect after side effect. Their answer always was another medication. So if you had migraine headaches,
whichever one was offering lunch that week,
whoever, it was bizarre. Like, I'm like, this person doesn't have bipolar disorder. Why are they on this med? Oh, the doctor said. I'm like, yeah, that's because the Lavictal rep was in last week. Like, I couldn't even take it.
Yeah, you'd mentioned that in
my book. I do talk about that.
It is disenchanting or just it's disillusioning when I have talked to a ton of doctors and you find out from people at the front desk, they're like, yeah, if you just buy them a lunch, or if you have them do a study for you, if you pay them to be a speaker, they'll really get behind you. I'm like,
yes,
wow, you're done.
Yeah, I mean that's their incentive, and they pay off the doctors.
I will say not all, and
not
many
all
that I know are great, but it's shocking when you see it for the first time.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing that I thought was interesting was I didn't know a lot about functional medicine, health, wellness. I didn't know anything. But I did know if someone is really anxious, maybe they have a thyroid problem. And the only reason I knew that was I think I had a friend who had a thyroid problem who happened to be very anxious. And I would ask the psychiatrist, well, why aren't we ever doing like a workup? There's no workup. There's no lab work. It's the only branch of medicine, psychiatry, that never does one lab test to try to figure out what's going on. And then
there's only one cause.
There's only one cause, genetics, right? That's the only cause. And we're just going to give them the med. And then when there's a side effect, we'll switch the med or up the med, because it must not have been a therapeutic dose. I remember the reps coming in and telling us like, oh, these kids have to get on ADHD medication, because otherwise we're setting them up for drug addiction later on. Oh, okay. So let's give them a prescription amphetamine so that they don't find speed on the street. Okay, made sense to me at the time. I was like, all right. But littler and littler kids, 5 years old, or they were on psych medication, like psychotic medication for for ODD, oppositional defiance disorder, right? So they were on like 5 or 6 meds at 5 years old. I was like, there is something wrong with this picture.
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing to say there is a risk of addiction, and that is definitely going to happen if you don't do this.
Oh, they would scare parents, and they would want us to scare parents. Well, this is what you tell parents that are resistant to ADHD meds. Oh, okay. And I said, okay. So in the back of my mind, I'm like, this doesn't sound right to me.
This is not where I want to be working.
This is not where I want to be working. But yet I was going along with it, and I was talking to colleagues, and they were all like, oh yeah, this is just standard care. Okay. Until I had my own kids. And that changed it for me. Because when they start exhibiting anxiety, when they start having ADHD symptoms, and they're 5 years old, and the pediatrician is like, well, you can always put them on an ADHD medication. And I was like, isn't there another way? So
one of the things that I am glad that you did write the book is because there are a lot of other ways.
Yeah.
But so in your book, you talked about Evan.
Yep.
Evan, so he was born premature.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Evan was born premature and was slower in development in some aspects. And as a mother, you're concerned.
Yeah.
And other people were like, don't worry about that.
That's normal. He's a boy. You can expect
so
that from him.
one, I'm glad that, you were maintained concern, and let's figure out, even if it's just that intuition that something should be better. It's about potential. Like I want to make sure he's arriving at his potential. And then it looks like that's where, at least from what I gathered, you really went in the deep dive of what other factors play into this.
Yeah. I mean, so Evan was 5, and my husband came home with a business card from a friend of his whose wife just opened up a naturopathic practice in Connecticut. And I said, I want to give this a shot. And why, at the same time, my aunt, who's always been a champion of alternative medicine, and she was always like curing her own illnesses with food and supplements, and she sent me an article about malabsorption in children with autism spectrum disorders, anxiety, apraxia, which was what my son was first diagnosed with. Later, it became pervasive developmental disorder, which is now not part of the DSM-5 because they've just lumped everything as an autism diagnosis. But pervasive developmental disorder was very much a neurodevelopmental speech apraxia / motor apraxia. He couldn't figure out his way out of a wicker basket if you put him in one. He didn't have the defense mechanism to put his hands down if he, fell off his bicycle. So I was like, there's something more going on here.
Yeah.
I'm like, and what is medication going to actually do for this? I didn't understand like how people would actually suggest, well, put him on an ADHD meds. Like, how would they know that he has ADHD or?
Well, yeah. I mean, first it seems like there's a lot of things going on there. So you've got to figure out first what those lot of things are and what different choices you have.
Exactly. So when we got the business card, I said, oh, great, let's get some blood work done. And I couldn't believe this woman spent 2 hours with me. Now, to do his whole medical history. He was 5. How much medical history could he have? But yet, 2 hours, all the way back to before they're like, oh, so how old were you when you got pregnant? What were you eating? Like all the way back. What medications were you on when you were pregnant?
5 years ago. I don't remember what I had for breakfast.
Right? It's a good thing I had a better memory back then. But I was, so I mean, I couldn't believe how thorough. And then the exam was so thorough. She was looking at his fingernails for, deficiencies in, things like zinc. He was looking at his earlobes and the shape of them and the size of them. And, does he prefer hot food or cold food? I mean, the questions that she was asking me, I was like, how is this? But it was functional medicine. It's looking at the entire system, not just a group of symptoms, not looking at one organ at a time, which I think is the problem with our mainstream medical model.
Because a lot of things could be going wrong, or a lot of things could be a bit better.
Right.
So if you're not looking at a lot of things, then you don't have the data points to find the right thing.
The right thing. And they're all Olympic rings, so they're all like affecting each other. So I remember going to a gastroenterologist with like studies in my hand, and I said, hey, wait a minute, could a gluten sensitivity issue be a reason for inflammation? Could that be one of the reasons like Evan is not speaking as well, or, his motor skills aren't that good? Oh, you've been reading too much. Get off the internet is what he told me. I was like, well, the hell with you. I'm going to find out somebody who's going to listen
If
to
you're
me.
not even familiar with the concerns that I have, then we're not on the same page.
I mean, it was insane. I thought I was talking Greek, which I was, I guess, to him. But, and then I go to a naturopathic physician, and she's like, oh, yes, absolutely. We're going to look for inflammation markers. We're going to look for food sensitivities. We're going to look for nutritional deficiencies. We're going to look in for toxicity levels in his body, heavy metal. I was like, what? So that's kind of what got us on the right path.
So to me, that approach makes sense. Like that's how medicine should be dealt with. That's how medical practice should be.
Right.
What would you, if someone were watching this and wanted to find a doctor that did that, what are you looking for?
So you're looking for somebody, well, there's two ways of going about it. So some will find a functional medicine doctor, or a MAPS doctor is now their abbreviation for pediatric functional medicine doctor for kids on the spectrum, kids with ADHD and so forth, or a naturopathic physician. I was surprised to learn that not all states actually license naturopathic physicians. So sometimes they have to kind of work incognito in a doctor's office, or sometimes they're working as APRNs or other, focus. So, I mean, obviously somebody that's functional medicine. So anyone that wants to search for it would look for, MAPS physicians, functional medicine doctors, alternative treatment centers, chiropractors in some states, and some chiropractors are very holistic and will, do those do testing for food sensitivities and all of that. So some, have expanded their scope of practice. So there's definitely different practitioners doing this. It's just a matter of finding the ones that will listen to you and actually do the testing.
I would think at a minimum, your doctor should be listening to you instead of just kind of ignoring and dismissing. And
pediatricians.
I'm the one with the MD here.
Yeah, well, that's what they act like. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. I said, well, even if you're going to give a kid a medication, how do we know what his dopamine levels are? Like, so you're reuptaking what? Some people think, oh, medication is giving you dopamine, giving you epinephrine. No, it's just upregulating it in the brain. But what happens if the body's not making enough of it? And shouldn't we be testing that? Oh, there's no way to. If you ask a regular pediatrician, oh, there's no way to test for that. We don't have this, the labs. Yes, you do, because I just got it tested with the functional doctor who did all the labs, so I know that they exist. But the two do not speak to each other. And if anything, that's pseudoscience. That's bullshit. That doesn't exist. So it does exist, because I go to doctors that look for these things, do 45 vials of blood work to try to, look at every organ system and recognize that they all connect to each other. So
I have to ask something. So
yeah.
Is there room for some kids to be on medication? So in your view?
So the way I look at it is, it should be a bridge. If someone is in an emergency situation and a kid is suicidal, right, and has to go to the hospital, has to get on some kind of med because he's going to kill his sister, of course, I'm not med, but as that happens, why aren't we looking for root causes?
Right.
If a kid is having seizures every single day, right, that's affecting the brain. Like, that could really, cause damage to the brain. A kid may need to be on a seizure medication, but then why aren't we looking for why he has a seizure condition? Something like glutamates. So glutamates are very active in the brain. It's actually a neurotransmitter. We think of glutamates, we think of free glutamates like soy sauce, right? Or certain wine or whatever.
That's what I thought when I was reading.
Yeah, glutamates, generally, that's what we think of. Food glutamates. Everyone's like, well, my kids don't eat anything with glutamates. I'm like, no. If the body is in an inflammatory state, or the body is fighting pathogens like Lyme disease or some other issue, the body creates glutamates. The glutamate level goes up to actually protect the brain. It's a protective measure, just like inflammation is a protective measure until it goes overboard. Once it goes overboard, glutamates can cause neurotoxicity. When that happens, you can have everything from anxiety to depression to seizures, to brain fog, to a whole bunch of insomnia and a whole bunch of other things. So this is the problem. Why aren't we looking for the
root cause,
so that we can potentially get off the medication? Because pharma has no interest in actually getting anyone better.
So it seems like, a lot of people will jump to medication because they see the effect the soonest, the easiest,
yep,
and that's all they want. But if there is an underlying issue that can be addressed, then it's just going to be masked.
Right.
And you're not going to be able to get to whether there's diet or sleep. I mean,
right.
if that'd be great to just be on medication all the time and then have no sleep patterns and not exercise and
right. Not getting any nutrients in our body. And, so many of the kids are picky eaters. So like, well, they're going to starve if they don't eat McDonald's. Well, guess what? They already are starving because if they're eating McDonald's, they're not getting any nutrients at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. We're just inflaming the body more, causing more illness. And then, you try to give a kid a broccoli, with a stomach that's very inflamed or an intestinal tract that's so damaged, the body's going to reject it. The body, it's not going to feel good to the child to eat that food.
Oh, we're gonna talk about the gut-brain axis a little bit later.
Yeah, that's a whole thing.
Because we've got some history there. But I want to get back to your son's 5. You start looking into alternative types of healing without hurting. And how far away is that from steps of writing a book and putting all this together?
So I started writing the book in like 2011, 12. So I'd say, probably 5 years later. He's like 10 years old and, I've learned so much, because at this point I'm still learning, I'm still doing, my book talks about all the therapies that are also involved. We did neurofeedback, we did some other therapies that were also meant to retrain the brain and bring it back on track. And so, we started to do all of those things. And so then it was like, I should write a pamphlet. So it started like in the summer, I was at my picnic table in my backyard. And I was like, let me just write down some of the things I've learned. It could really help someone else. And that's how the book got started. And then about 6 months later, and no one likes me to talk about this either, about 6 months later, Sandy Hook happened in Newtown, Connecticut, which I
dedicated the book to it.
Who I dedicated my book to that cause, only because we can identify now that Adam was clearly on the spectrum. Nobody likes to talk about that though. If that stuff gets so buried in the media. Like we heard about it in the first 5 minutes, like when it all came out that, his mom had 10 books on Asperger's and this and that. And he had OCD and all the things that a lot of kids on the spectrum have. It totally gets buried because no one wants because is it every kid? Absolutely not. Is it every kid on medication? No. Absolutely not. But there is a subset of kids that could really be helped. Maybe he had Lyme disease and nobody ever looked for that.
Yeah.
Maybe there was some pathogen. Maybe he had PANDAS.
It's almost like why would you hide any relevant possible detail? Like,
do we know why they hide it? And now it's misinformation.
That's a naive question.
Right, now it's misinformation. Like if you bring it up, you're like, oh no, he didn't have he wasn't on the spectrum. Listen, you look at all these shooters, like you look into their eyes, they're vacant. They have no nutritional anything. Their guts are probably inflamed. They're not getting nutrient levels up that they need. They're full of toxins. And then you add like trauma to their life story or you add like social exclusion to their life story and boom.
Which is all, recipe. We live in an environment where that is more easily exacerbated because of the social media. Yeah. Before we were talking, it used to be that you could have a disagreement with a person in person, and you still can.
Right.
And it's totally fine. You behave like a normal human being in person, but man, when you get it online or when you get in emails or X or anything, then it's, who is that person I was just talking to?
Right. Right.
Which, in kids and bullying and their social existence is online. I'm amazed at how I do my best to keep my kids active in extracurriculars, but it is not wrong to say that a large part of their social life is sitting there on the screen on Instagram.
Right. Yeah. And I didn't even realize, like, through COVID, because my kids were both middle schoolers, that's the only way kids were communicating was through Snapchat. Because I'm like, why haven't you talked to any of your friends?
I'm talking to them all the time.
Yeah, well, they didn't have Snapchat at first because I was like anti, too much social media isn't good for you. They were, they just got their phones like for the first time, middle school, Yeah,
but in this day and age, now they're the isolated ones out. You don't
isolated.
Even know.
Yeah, I had no idea. I was isolating them by doing that.
You knew that when I was growing up. Like, if you're home alone, you're isolated. You're not playing basketball with everyone else. Like,
right.
You're the loner.
Yep.
You don't know that now.
No, right. And you would know who that kid was. That was right, home or Right. And now everyone's just hiding out in their bedrooms. I mean, Adam Lanza had like, black tape all around his bedroom windows. And, there was no eyes on him either. And the mom was trying to do what she could. But, again, probably roadblock after roadblock after roadblock, because there's no real help. I mean, as a therapist, I can tell you it's really sad and what's going on. I mean, I have a kid that, is cutting themselves, suicidal. They go to the hospital. They get evaluated for 2 or 3 minutes. They literally get sent home. Like, there is no care. They get put on a med. There's no follow-up to figure out, well, did the kid have a side effect? Nothing. If the kid doesn't come back, if the parents don't bring them back, nobody's the wiser. I mean, these drugs also have a black box warning that they can cause psychosis and other things. But, God forbid you talk about that either. That's not allowed. We can't talk about that.
Unless it's a commercial where there's all the warnings.
Right, including death.
All the warnings are laid out, and then we don't talk about them.
Right, and there's like beautiful music in the background and butterflies, because that's real. So it's sad. It's really sad. There's really not a lot of help, even anywhere in mental health. Not a lot.
I lost track. Sandy Hook happened before the book was published?
So the book was started. I started writing it the summer before Sandy Hook happened, and then when Sandy Hook happened, it kind of made me say, "Well, I have to write this book." It reinforced it for me that I had to go and finish it. So about a year late, 6 months, year later, was when I got the medical, editor, and I was looking for publishers, and so it came out in 2014, which feels like 1,000 years ago now. And then it was republished with a couple updates in like 2018, 19.
Okay.
Some people say, oh, isn't it outdated? Well, maybe like 1/100th of it is outdated, but a lot of the medicine that's in there is actually from yesteryear. Like, this was the medicine that doctors were actually practicing in the 18 and 1900s, early 1900s, before pharma came into the picture.
One of the things that I like, so my background, I have a master's degree in molecular biology, and so I spent an enormous amount of time reading scientific journal articles. At the end of every single one are the references cited to support what it's talking about. And your book has at least 20 pages of references. So that's one of the things that I like. If a book is documented, makes a statement about this nutrient supports whatever, and I can go read for myself.
Right.
Sometimes I want to learn more about that because I hadn't heard that about that nutrient or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's very well documented, and I noticed that everything so far what we've been talking about now is all the parts of the book that I didn't read the first time.
Right. Because you just went right to the science.
Because I wanted to know what to do for my son. It was like, what nutrients does he need? I went through the ADHD chapters. I went through the nutrient chapters, but I missed all the personal story and the backdrop. And it actually reads really well because it's like story. Here's what mental health conditions we're talking about, story, because then it moves on to talk about your daughter.
Yep. Yeah, that's a whole nother thing. I thought she was free of all this stuff.
No.
And although she didn't have the
still the 21st century.
Yeah, it's like, she has PANDAS, pediatric autoimmune encephalitis from a strep infection. Wow.
So I kind of ignored that part because I was, again, hyper-focused on my need. I don't know, before reading today, I didn't know what PANDAS is. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so it's an autoimmune condition that usually causes an inflammation of the brain, pediatric autoimmune encephalitis, which is basically brain inflammation. And it can come on because of a dysregulated immune system, usually because of toxic load. So we're talking about mold toxicity, we're talking about Lyme disease, we're talking about strep infections, COVID. We see a lot of it now because we have a lot of long-haul COVID cases. And, basically that's adult PANS as far as I'm concerned, because it causes a whole lot of neurological disruption. It causes insomnia, brain fog, joint pain in some cases. OCD is a huge component of it, and that's why I feel like the glutamates are a big piece of that. Histamines are a problem with these kids. They just can't regulate. So a lot of them will have these flares, they're called, and during a flare, you may not even recognize your child. So the child will turn like OCD, obsessive compulsive, might start having an eating disorder like overnight. Like my daughter just said, something in my mind is telling me not to eat or drink. Wow. And that's when I knew when she was 9 years old, like, oh shit. And then we did all the things we did with Evan, took her back to the doctor that I saw with Evan. She was so much better until COVID hit. And when COVID hit, all hell broke loose.
Yeah.
right? Because she probably has some genetic predisposition, possibly on top of insult after insult after insult of toxins, which the body just can't handle. And the burden, too much toxic burden on top of too many virus burden, right? We have too many viruses in the body at the same time, and it just causes complete havoc. The body doesn't know what to do. So it just goes on overdrive and doesn't know how to shut itself off. So it's working too well.
So if someone were watching and their child does have PANDAS, what would be the indicators that you might want to look down this as opposed to, ADHD or autism? It's probably more towards that.
More PANDAS. Well, it's interesting because a lot of times it runs in the same family. So that's number one. Like if you have a son on the spectrum with autism or ADHD, and then you have like a daughter or a son or whatever that starts exhibiting, it's seemingly overnight. Like a flare will happen kind of fast. And some people will say it's a sudden onset of tics or it's a sudden onset of OCD. And yes, that's a very clear indication. But sometimes it's more subtle than that. Sometimes their handwriting just goes downhill. Like all of a sudden they're just not making sense. Or they're just really anxious. Like my daughter was so anxious, she would have a lot of separation anxiety from a little girl. And I just said, oh, she's shy. Oh, she's an introvert. I would make excuses. But it was like, it was crazy anxiety. Like she didn't want to go to kindergarten. Well, a lot of kids don't want to go to kindergarten. But it was literally like the teachers had to pull her off me. I couldn't leave. She, crying. So that was like soft signs. So now we understand in this world that sometimes kids have soft signs, often leading to a big flare where then it becomes more obvious, but sometimes not. I mean, kids with ODD, oppositionally defiant disorder, it could be PANDAS. They're biting their sister and we can't, they're destroying their bedroom and they're punching holes in the wall, and it could be very, very, very debilitating.
How recognized is PANDAS amongst the traditional medical community?
Well, the Academy of Pediatrics.
Is that a loaded question?
Sort of. I mean, the Academy of Pediatrics, I think just in the last 4 months has finally admitted it. Like finally, oh yeah, I think this could be a problem. I think the DSM-5 finally included it in the DSM-5, which I didn't even know. So it is starting to get recognized. However, their treatments are not what a functional medicine doctor will do. Their treatments might involve steroids, right? Meds again.
Of course it's got to be a med.
Anti-inflammatories like steroids or ibuprofen and all that. And all that is great initially because we have to get the inflammation down, right? Because it can cause seizures. It can cause a whole this. So often if we give them if we give them like ibuprofen and we notice their behavior sort of improves a little, that's a good indication sometimes. And that's what a lot of people will do is they'll give them like 600 or 800 milligrams of ibuprofen just to see.
Well, so if it is an
helps.
Inflammation issue, the ibuprofen brings down inflammation a little bit.
A little bit temporarily, but it's a good start.
Yeah.
Right. But then the mainstream doctors.
No, I'm not advocating that. I'm saying that's why one might think that.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, including myself, in a flare, in an emergency, we will use that because it is quickest, to get it down. And I understand some people will use like, other anti-inflammatories. There's another one, which is low dose naltrexone, which is also being used sometimes by mainstream doctors, but more and more functional medicine where they're giving them this this medication. It's basically an opioid like disruptor. So it does something to the opioid system, and it actually does help reduce that inflammation over long periods of time. So there are different approaches. And then some more functional medicine doctors will look into like IV ozone therapy to kill the Lyme, to really get down to it. EBU is something that we've done with my daughter. PRP, which is plasma-rich therapy. So all these things are sort of like not covered by insurance, of course, right? I find that most of the things that actually really help our kids, sadly, are not covered.
That is,
that's
I have found that the same
conversation. Yeah, it's sad.
But I guess I'm surprised that you said that it is now at least recognized, because I'm not surprised that for a long time it wasn't. Mm-hmm. Which, when you just listed off a whole bunch of easy symptoms of identifiable behavior, that this is what that is. Yep. It's a shame that the medical community won't recognize those types of things, because at least they could be aware of this checklist of things to be aware of. It's like the biggest danger is you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And if you're intentionally like trying to not know,
Yes.
Because it's all that.
I mean, when Elena was 9 and having this issue, so this was almost 9 years ago now. She's almost 18. The pediatrician said, "This is an interesting story. Thank you for sharing it with me." I'm like, "An interesting story?" I go, "Can you do me a favor and test her for strep?" "Oh, she doesn't have strep. I just looked in her throat." And then I almost walked out of the office and she goes, "Okay, fine." Like she was going to appease me. She comes back. She goes, "Wow, she has strep." I go, "Yeah." I'm like, I can't, and it's just one thing after the other. So I think now 9 years later, they finally are starting to recognize that, oh, it could cause neurological symptoms. And again, I think it happens in adults too. But they want them on Zyprexa for psychosis. They want them on, that's their go-to. And what's interesting, I think there was a study in Europe somewhere where they actually looked at psych medications across the board to see what's the mechanism, how is it helping, not helping. And they've determined that it has nothing to do with like neurotransmitter levels, which I was like, what? I'm like, okay, that makes sense to me. Probably not everybody. And they said the mechanism of psych meds is it actually acts as an anti-inflammatory. And I think, wow. And then the light bulb went on for me. I said, could most psychiatric illnesses because of inflammation in the gut, right? The gut-brain connection. And then, of course, trauma is another insult to the body, right? So, of course, trauma, personality disorders in families, family system stuff. I'm a therapist, so, of course, there's definitely that component also.
So you have an incident like COVID, and surely nothing's going to happen when trauma in that type of environment is going to affect everything.
Everything.
I mean, one of the things, I think mental illness across the board is up after COVID. Mm-hmm. Medication use is up across the board after COVID.
Substance abuse is up since COVID.
Because it caused a lot of disruption to just living. And living is part of the things that causes inflammation. Like if you change the way you live and you change to a different type of diet, that causes intestinal or gut inflammation, which causes neuroinflammation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the social exclusion. And so when...
On top of it being an inflammatory illness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So we go back to the inflammation thing.
Yeah.
It's like it caused a cytokine storm in everyone. They kept saying it was respiratory, but it was actually inflammatory. And the doctors that were giving people things like steroids and things that was actually improving their symptoms greatly, because it was mostly inflammatory. And that affects the whole neurological system as well as, the other organ systems.
Well, and I think when you say that it's inflammatory and in the last 30 years, the environment has changed so much with toxins, pesticides, food, additives.
Yep.
We're adding a lot to the system that the body just hasn't recognized. And so it's going to get into inflammation.
Yep. Absolutely.
I mean, especially with food. So, I reached out after having read everything in here. I saw that you were well researched on nutrition, and my background is more of omega-3 fatty acids and a lot of the B vitamins, the coenzymes that help support serotonin and norepinephrine and dopamine. I didn't know anything about probiotics. My bachelor's is in microbiology, so I remember like the names of the bacteria. But like I didn't really know any, but I wanted to do something and reached out to you to help help design a probiotic. And you did the initial research for which strains were good. Then we found them. But what were your thoughts on gut inflammation and the gut-brain axis?
Yeah, well, I didn't realize that our gut and our intestinal system regulates the entire immune system. And 90% of our immune system is in our gut and the whole 9 yards. And we forget, like the pesticides, like you mentioned, the toxic foods, the preservatives, all of it is basically killing off our good gut bacteria. So we have bugs, so to speak, in our gut that are regulating our whole immune system, good and bad, right? And so we have some bad bacteria in there, but the good bacteria comes in and rescues it and takes care of it and keeps everything kind of homeostasis. And it's like an ecosystem in there. So it's like, going to, a different country and just like starting to throw pesticides all over their plants. And then, we would just be killing off the bees. And then an ecosystem is so important. And so we forget. So, the more crap we put in our bodies, the more poisons that we're eating, ingesting, breathing, all the things, we're just killing that off.
You're killing
right?
off
whole colonies. And then on top of it, we're
that
not
the human race
eating-
has been
Yeah.
co-evolved with for thousands of years
Years.
based off the food that we're eating.
Exactly. And then we're not feeding the biome. So the biome is very interesting in that like each strain of good bacteria needs a very specific number of like nutrients. So like certain bacteria likes radishes and certain bacteria likes, cauliflower, so if we're not eating the rainbow, as they say, of vegetables, for example, and fruit, it has nothing to eat on. And it doesn't have anything to thrive on. So, we talk about fiber, we talk about prebiotics. So as much as the probiotics are just as important because we have to kind of repopulate the gut with good bacteria, then we have to feed the good bacteria. So if we're not doing that and we keep eating pesticides, it's like a vicious circle and we never really get healthier. And the people who have very low good bacteria colonies are often the sickest. They're always getting colds, flus, and we all get those, but it's supposed to be over in 2 or 3 days. People that are sick for 3 weeks at a time, and then they get a huge high fever, and then it's because of their whole immune systems are not properly working.
What foods are most people missing that would help people with their guts?
Soap fiber. Most of us, I started eating fruits and vegetables with every single meal, making sure it was like a prerequisite. And I have to say, I feel 1,000 times better. It's weird. You don't even, I feel like we're a culture of feeling terrible. We don't even realize we feel terrible, right? We just, I have some joint pain. I have a stomach ache all the time. It's normal to feel like crap.
Yeah.
I don't sleep. I just must be, premenopausal, must be like hormones. People just chalk it up to everything except for what they're eating, because obviously it takes some discipline. It's not easy to eat well in this world. And, because it's fast food this and processed that everywhere.
Fast food, ready open food, DoorDash.
Right.
And to actually
seed oils, crap, protein.
To actually get food fresh, you've got to buy the produce within a reasonable amount of time.
Right.
Prepare it. Mm-hmm. Although I have started using a lot more fermented foods. I didn't realize how good pickled anything, but sauerkraut on just as adding it, and you don't realize how much better you actually feel.
Yes. Yes. That's that's the other thing is we've gotten away from, and I think my book talks about our ancestors, right? They would be rolling around in their graves because most of them ate a lot of spices, which were medicinal. They would also have a lot of fermented food, which was all, now if your gut's really in a bad shape, I wouldn't, like the guts, the GAPS diet and all of that. Sometimes if you have high histamine levels, it could be really bad. Like certain probiotics might not be good for you initially while you're trying to heal, or, even sauerkraut, and also sauerkraut at the grocery store is horrible. There's 10,000 preservatives in it. So if we get it, we should get it from a health food store, or we should make it ourselves. Ideally, we'd be making it ourselves. But yeah, if we just go to, Stop and Shop.
I've seen a lot of the videos of fermenting your own vegetables and stuff.
Oh, it's
and
so
I
easy.
loved it.
So
okay,
easy.
so tell me how. Tell me how.
It's literally adding salt and vinegar to a jar and putting in your vegetables and waiting
at a
for it to
certain
ferment.
ratio, or
Not really. I just listen to my ancestors and pour a little of this, and but generally it's a half a cup of sugar. Not sugar. Okay, half a cup of salt to a cup of salt, and a huge.
And how long do you wait before the magic happens?
I usually just leave it on the counter, and everyone puts it in the fridge, but we shouldn't put it in the refrigerator. We should leave it out on our counter.
Because the bacteria has to grow.
The bacteria has to grow, right? So we don't want to stop it from growing by putting it in the refrigerator. Once it's fermented, then we want to slow down the fermenting process because we don't want it to turn. So we'll put it in the refrigerator.
Okay.
But ideally, we're just gonna leave the jar basically, and we want to dampen it down. There's different recipes, and you can add. Like I do with pickles all the time. And you can add dill, you can add, a little of this, a little of that. It's really easy though. And within a couple of weeks you have fermented vegetables, and just as much as you want. If you want a really sour pickle, you'll let it go a little longer. So yeah, it's really quite easy
this
to
weekend.
do. Just get some mason jars, just fill them up with water, so you want to put water in there, salt in there, warm water, salt.
The thing is what you're saying is that is how people used to do food a lot.
Yes.
And we have gravitated towards where we don't do that.
Right.
I actually love cooking. I haven't been cooking as much lately, but I've done a little bit of everything, but I really have never done anything with like pickling anything or.
Yeah, that's probably the easiest thing. I mean, if you want to get into canning and jarring, like that's all a little more,
But one of the things that happens when you feed the good bacteria is that there's not room for the bad bacteria to grow.
Right, and that's the whole point, is that we want the good colonies to outweigh or outgrow the bad. So, technically, people can live with Klebsiella bacteria in their guts, and that's going to cause a whole lot of symptoms potentially. It also causes more of the toxins to keep growing, and then the body's full of toxins. It's all connected. But if you have good gut bacteria, that's going to squeeze out the bad or kill it off. It's like, it's like soldiers. It's like, think if you have good bacteria being good soldiers in there. And are we just destroying it? And our diet's varied enough. People that are just eating processed foods or eating like 2 different types of, I know people that just eat dairy and gluten. That's it. How much bacteria, what's their bacteria look like? Some people seemingly seem so healthy. I'm like, how does that happen? Maybe I'm doing something wrong. Maybe all the toxins is actually killing off some bad stuff. I don't know what it is.
Well, everyone is different,
Yes,
small changes make a big impact on some people, and then those changes don't have much of an effect for someone else.
Yeah.
I know one of the things, when Riley was diagnosed with ADHD, we initially started removing the food dyes. And we made a couple other of the elimination steps. I forgot what they were because for him, it didn't really do much.
Right.
He benefited more with adding in nutrients that he wasn't getting. Or the sleep and exercise play a big role too.
Oh, absolutely.
But what types, when you think about things to eliminate, if a child starts presenting with more issues and you want to start filtering out, what would be like your top 5 get rid of this?
Well, we have to get rid of this is like kid food mentality, right? So once we do that, we've gotten rid of a lot of things. I don't know when the menus just started, like kid food, like why is like hamburgers and, why is like hot dogs kid food and macaroni and cheese kid food? It's strange.
Funny how obvious that was as soon as you said that. I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that would be number 1. Like anything we consider a kid food should probably be eliminated, right? So, obviously the food dyes are basically petroleum based. So it's coal tar, it's aluminum. It's not meant to be in our body. It's not compatible with human biology at all. And so that's the first thing, right? And then we have nitrates and nitrites, and that you see in like a lot of processed meat. Right. Mm-hmm. Those are excitotoxins. Those will rise glutamates. Those are toxic to our body. So again, reading packages, not eating foods with more than 2 or 3 ingredients, trying to eat, organic whenever we can, eating whole food. People have forgotten, because we got so used to the generation of eating processed food. And what I mean by that is you go to get, you buy a hamburger helper. It's like we still have to ground the beef. We still have to cook the beef, right? Then we might have to boil water for pasta. So how much time are we actually saving using that package thing? The only difference is we're pouring a whole bunch of chemicals on the meat instead of taking paprika, cumin, like healthy
You have
herbs.
Other flavors in the spice deck. You don't have to pour in the pouch of
crap, basically. Yeah, so honestly, going back to our spice cabinet and flavoring food, it's delicious. Like we need to just go back to the basics. The way our grandparents, I remember my grandmother making us food, and it was like we'd have a starch, we'd call it a starch. We'd have a starch, we'd have some kind of protein, and then we'd have something sweet like fruit on our plate. And that's all we need. And as we eat this way, we don't crave the sugar as much.
Yeah.
We have a sweet potato, we have some blueberries with our dinner, we have, a quarter pounder of grass-fed beef. Like we're satisfied. I think a lot of times kids are overeating because they're still not satisfied because they're not eating anything healthy, So people say all the time to me, oh, my kids would starve, like I said, or they are so picky. That's a huge indication that there's inflammation in the gut and that you better start addressing it because mineral deficiency will also cause sensory processing disorder. You hear a lot of that, like where kids are, have, texture problems and they have, smell problems or they can't be in loud groups because they can't, it's so sensitive. Their ears are so sensitive. They can't even stand you like when you're chewing food. And that's all neurological. And a lot of it's because they don't have the nutritional requirements necessary to prevent that from happening.
Yeah,
So.
my youngest was surprised when I talked about how some of my favorite just snacks would be like frozen raspberries or frozen blueberries.
Yeah.
Because like,
Yeah.
I mean, I like raspberries and blueberries anyway, but
Right.
when you freeze them, I mean, frozen raspberries, they like explode in your mouth like Pop Rocks.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
they're delicious.
it's a real trick to like, this is a dessert, but then
Yeah.
it's also really low glycemic index
Right.
and antioxidants. He's like, what? That's your snack?
Yeah. I mean, we're either feeding ourselves or we're poisoning them. And that's the way, I mean, my kids, luckily, I mean, I hope, they're starting to get, like, head to college. So let's see what happens. But, that's their snack. They go get a carrot. Mm-hmm. They go get a piece of, celery. They might put a little peanut butter on it, the way I did as a kid. That's what I would do. That was snacks. My son loves carrot juice. I mean, so it's like, it's interesting because and as they eat, they go to a party and they have something, they're like, oh, it tastes like chemicals. I'm like, right. Because your taste buds literally change. Like once you start eating healthy, the other stuff, you can almost taste the chemicals in it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a turn off because your body intuitively, if we were more intuitive with ourselves, we wouldn't be eating it. People are just mindlessly having Lay's potato chips. They're disgusting. Like they taste like grease, like really bad oil.
It's funny because like I remember years back just walking down the grocery store aisle and seeing all of the different flavors of Oreos. Like it's not just Oreos.
Right.
There's like 20 different flavors of Oreos. And I was just thinking, this is my like childhood dream. Like, and so when you say that, like, get rid of all the kid food,
Yeah.
that kind of makes sense. Like everything that like the kids want, it's just not a mature perspective.
Right. Well, and again, all that in moderation, right? I mean, obviously, like I want my kids to have some junk, and that fact that they're going to go to college one day or they're going to go out into the world, and I don't want them to gorge on it because, like mom said, you can't have any of that, right? But at the same time, you have to know their limits. I mean, I know my brother, you'd put like a sleeve of Oreos. That would be his lunch. Like, and a big high C. I mean, like, so it started back probably in the 70s and 80s, but the food back then wasn't even as bad as the food is now. Like it had half the ingredients that it has now. So.
Well, we've tried to eliminate as much of the red dyes as we can, but I cannot fight against the flaming hot Cheetos. I mean, but if it's just, every now and then.
But what's interesting? A lot of those foods actually have a counter, more organic version, right? So like there's something pea something, which are like basically taste like Cheetos, but they're organic and they have like avocado oil instead of the crappy seed oil. Like, so it's interesting. Like I find, and a lot of the alternatives are actually just as good. There's like a Dorito that's like that now too. That's like organic.
Anything that has like a powdery thing over it.
Yeah.
I'm just suspect. Like there's the Cheez-Its, but it has the wrinkles on it, and it's white cheddar Cheez-Its.
Oh, okay.
I could eat a whole box. Like, it's crap.
Well, that's
like,
what they want you to
I
do.
know. That's why, like, I'm suspicious of whenever there's a powder, there is something that is just really hitting those dopamine receptors that are just like, keep going. And then my stomach's like, stop already.
Right. Yeah. And again, it once in a while at a party, it's fine, but it's like, this is what people are living on.
I'm just saying, when that when you taste, they're putting something in there that's bad, because things are not supposed to be that addicting when you start eating them.
Oh, they definitely are. But they're on purpose. They know that's their marketing plan, is to keep us all wanting more of it. So I know. So it's, again, we can eat better. I mean, everyone should be, so when we go back to kids and like, what are we taking out? We should really think about what we're adding in, right? Because as we add in good things, the bad things naturally just start disappearing.
Okay, so you
said...
Because
that could, you're like, oh, I have to get rid of all that.
You said, I asked what the 5 things you would take out or get rid of first. Now, what are the 5 things you would put in?
So vegetables, right? I would, and if kids don't like vegetables, it could be how they're preparing them. So, maybe some kids, because of texture and stuff, some kids like string beans that are uncooked. Like my daughter only eats carrots that are cooked, right? So you have to get to know them, like as people, like, because we all have preferences too. So, how do you like your asparagus? My daughter likes it like a little bit, sauteed and garlic and oil. And like my son likes, so that matters. So like, not that we want to make 10 different meals for 10 different kids, because like that's not a good idea. But, try it all different ways. Get them involved in cooking. We have a whole organic garden. Like I have so many tomatoes right now and cucumbers. Actually, I'm going to pickle them.
That sounds awesome.
I'm going to pickle them when I get home, actually, because I have like 10 right now. I have to like cut them into, put them in mason jars. But yeah, it's great. And they're part of it. So they, we look forward to it. We look forward to picking the vegetables. We look forward to making them and coming up with new recipes. And they're older now, but even when they were young, like that's a huge one. So, I mean, adding vegetables
and fresh vegetables taste way better than when they're in the store.
So much better. And even going to a local farm stand, or even a local grocery store where they actually have local farm stand produce, which tastes so much better. I think I had the best blueberries I've ever had the other day, stopping at one of those stands.
Okay, so I had a blueberry bush in my backyard, and I am in the South where there's birds everywhere.
Yeah.
And what do you do to stop the birds and the squirrels from getting to it?
So I have bird
Spray
netting.
a whole bunch of pesticides.
No, so there's bird netting you can get.
Okay.
Right? So you can get a like Ace Hardware, Home Depot, whatever. And it's just a very light net that goes over the whole. And I actually have it over my organic garden too, because I know the birds would just have a field day eating all my food. And I also, on the bottom, I have like a grate underneath the bed, so that like the moles and the squirrel and nothing can get underneath and eat all the roots. But yeah, so bird netting. We usually like leave a little for the birds and then net the rest. But yeah,
they produce a ton. I remember when I was in college, I had a friend that had a blueberry bush in their backyard, which is what made me put one there, because she would come. She was on. I was in the wakeboarding club, and we were going out to the lake. And she'd come with these like 5-gallon plastic bags.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't need to take all yours. These are not all. This is like what we got today.
That's funny.
Like, okay, wow.
Yeah. And it's still, it's so good. So, and it's candy really. And like you said, freeze it. Like it tastes even better. Like, and that's why it's like maybe the kids don't like blueberries, but maybe they would like them frozen. Or they might not like asparagus, but if you put it in the oven and you roast it with just a little bit of, good salt, like they'll like it. It's crispy like a French fry. Like, so you just have to be creative.
Yeah. My mom I don't think this was her plan, but she had an amazing casserole where crushed up Ritz crackers, cheese, and broccoli. And it was just because of the Ritz crackers and the cheese, like it was delicious. But I, as a kid, got used to the taste of broccoli. Like now I could have broccoli in any raw in a salad or steam sauteed, like any way. But I like it because she found a good way of preparing it.
Yeah. So, and again, you have to introduce things over and over to kids. Like they might not like it the first time, but you have to kind of keep giving it to them. So,
were your kids, did they like to be active? Were they into sports or just moving around? How much did
my son's much more active than my daughter is. My son, is in like unified sports, and he's in basketball, and he plays rec, and he likes, he's on the track team. He's very active. He likes to go to the gym and work out. My daughter likes to play the piano, likes to write short stories. So she's definitely more introverted that way. And so she likes to play tennis and things, but she's not like a sports kid for sure.
Well, those are all really good, healthy activities, but activity, especially for people that are ADHD, is one of the best things they can do.
It gets the whole system going, right? It gets it all back on track. Yeah. So definitely my son needs that. And when he's not doing that, there's a difference, like in his attention span and, so again, exercise, like very basic things, even in the classroom, like having bursts of exercise instead of expecting kids to sit in a desk for 45 minutes, an hour and a half at a time.
I've always been active up until a few years ago when I tore my ACL. And so, but I knew like I had to go on my morning run or I had to go to the gym because I was slow. My mind just never quite woke up. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize how important, exercise is important for everyone, but I think for people with ADHD, it is even more important because now it's a struggle. I have to deliberately find ways to be active because I can't do what I had used to done, but being active is, and that's what we've had our kids into all sorts of activities is you have to move.
Oh, definitely.
Eat right, move.
And move.
Sleep.
I was so happy because for 4 years, Evan was in high school, and first period, he would always have unified sports. So he was physically active, 7 o'clock in the morning. And that, like, I know, set him up for the rest of the day. Like,
It's a good habit to set.
It was such a great habit. I hope he can maintain that in college and he could find, activities he could do in the morning before class, because it does make a difference.
And you said he was going to somewhere in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, so he's going to a little school in Pennsylvania. It's only like 2,000 kids or something. But it's great because they have a lot of programs for kids like him. And, there's going to be like lots of academic support, lots of like peer mentor support. So I'm looking forward to it. How far is that? It's only about 3 hours from me.
Okay.
So it's not terrible, so it's kind of, it's great because he gets to go away to school. And because otherwise, I mean, my husband and I are like very micromanaging. It's better for him. And this way I won't see what he's eating. Like every day I'm like, so talk to me again about when you go to the cafeteria, like I'm setting up all these scenarios and, you've got grapes over here and you got Cheetos over here. Like, which one are you going to choose? Like he laughs. I can't wait to go to college and have all the Gatorade I want. And I'm like, Ev? And he's like, I'm just kidding. I'm like, so, I know I have to be realistic. And, college campuses, food supply, not the greatest most of the time. So I'm not anticipating that, I'm just glad he'll be home 6 months of the year.
I started feeling that kind of disappointment when Riley got a job and started having his own money and just stopping by the convenience store and just seeing the garbage he was buying. It's like, really? No. That's a lot. Like, you don't need all that junk.
Right. No, exactly. So I worry a little bit. My daughter, not so much, because she's much more like health conscious, and she's, she likes matchas are her favorite, and green tea. She just loves it. And so but him, I don't know. Like,
I think that'd be hard. Riley he's going to a nearby college, so he's not going to be going far.
So he's living at home.
Yeah, probably. He doesn't tell me. So we got divorced 4 years ago, so he's been half and half.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what he's going to do. Like whether it's still going to switch with his siblings, or I know he's not moving out right away, but I think he's staying home for the near foreseeable future.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, every kid is different. Like, I know Evan would definitely not do well at home. Like, he's just not, like, he's so super social. Like, he wants to join the sports teams. He wants to be manager of the sports teams. He's already figured out what clubs he's joining. I mean, like,
which ones?
Which ones that he want to join?
Yeah.
So he wants to join something for, like philanthropic, like he wants to help out in soup kitchens or things like that. And then he's like, maybe I'll join the spiritual club. I go, okay. He's like, I can learn about different religions. I go, yeah, that's a great idea. He's like, he's very like philosophical about himself. And so, he says, well, maybe I'll join a sports, he'll do probably rec basketball at the minimum. So I think his school's like Division 2 or 3. So, at least he'll be involved. I'm sure he'll be involved on campus with the sports and any activities that are going on. He's a big joiner, and he's not afraid to do that. Like, he'll make new friends in 15 minutes probably.
Yeah.
So when my daughter is a different kid, like she's much more introverted, like she's happy with her 3 best friends and like, so yeah, but he's definitely looking forward to being on campus, and it'll be good for him.
It's funny because like when I thought, as being a parent and preparing your kids to enter the world, you think about education and what they're going to do. And in the most immediate future, because that's next week, it's more like, what are your sleep habits? What are your exercise habits? What are your food habits? Because he was in track. Riley was in track for 3 years. He was on, and then played soccer for years. So for years, he's been active in organized sports.
Right.
But now that's on him.
Right.
To like be active. You're not, if you're playing basketball, cool, but like, make sure you're still active.
Right.
I just liked playing any game, so I would find something to do.
Yeah.
His games are more on the PlayStation.
No kidding. That's why I said you gotta put that thing down. Like this
so
is why I didn't
though.
want to give it to them in the first place.
Yeah.
Like, get off the damn things. Yeah. So yeah, it's a whole problem nowadays. I feel like a lot of the kids are, they're gaming. They're talking to friends like online. So much so that I'm like, Elena, pick up the phone and call about your appointment. Blah blah blah. She's like, can you do it? I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. Like, like they don't even know how to dial a phone or like it's so weird. I'm like, you guys need some help.
I am playing with my friends with the headphones on and the mic and.
Yeah, it's such a different world. Right. That's his friend time. I'm like, can you just invite Lucas over? I'm like, he lives like 5 minutes away. He's driving.
Yeah.
Have him come over. You guys can go in the pool, shoot some hoops outside. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So definitely going away to school would be good for him because it's going to force him into like living in life.
Yeah.
Like he's not going to be able to hide behind his devices. He's not going to, it's going to be harder to do that. They don't have a TV in their room. I mean, obviously he could be on his laptop, but it's a little different.
That's great. I could not have stayed home when I went to college. I had to leave.
Yeah.
And it's great being on your own.
Yeah. It teaches independence. Like, yeah, he definitely needs to do it again because my husband and I are too good parents. Like we're just too good. Like it's not good. He needs to go like do his laundry. Oh, you don't have socks? Like I don't know what to tell you. Don't ask me. I'm not there. So it'll be good.
Yeah, the last year has been fun making sure that teaching those life skills.
Yes.
When I get back, we're going to be putting spark plugs into the car,
nice.
Learn how to do that.
Yeah.
They've gotten pretty smart just with the fact that like there's a YouTube video on how to do anything.
Yeah.
Or even now ChatGPT walk me through each step individually. So like,
yep.
It's kind of a cool.
It's good and bad.
Yeah.
This AI thing.
They can do much more than what had access to information than I did. But then it's like, I don't have to learn it because if I ever need it, I can just find it right away.
I know. That's true. Except that makes me sad because as an author who wrote a book before all that was an option, I'm just like, well, that's the end of being an author. Like people just write the book writes itself, in a way. I mean, to do the research, you just say, give me 5 studies on why vitamin A is good for you, or whatever. And it just goes.
So I will say, like I have, for some of our content videos, I've used ChatGPT to write the initial script.
Yeah.
And then I read through it and check the sites. And because I'm dealing with something I've been dealing with for a long time, I challenge back, are you sure about this?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, no, you're right. So it's like,
yes, you can't always trust it.
No, you can't. But if someone doesn't, like if they do just write a book because you haven't done the work and you don't know enough to do the corrections, then it does have the potential to let a lot of bad information out there.
Oh, absolutely. Well, you can challenge it because it's funny because I'll just be like, is homeopathy good for ADHD or whatever? I know, and they'll say, we can't give you that information. Da da da. I'm like,
really?
Yeah.
ChatGPT does that?
Sometimes it depends, and then or it gives you a list and then it disappears. Sorry, we can't help you with that. I'm like, I said you were just helping me with that. Could you do that again? And like then it's like, okay, sorry. Here's the information. Like it's almost like it tries to hide some stuff too. So and who's feeding all these this stuff? Like it's supposed to be coming from everyone's sources, but it's interesting.
Well, and I don't know how this would affect a book author. So I'm just making something up right now because we're trying to utilize getting our message out. And the more places that you have information out there, that's where the AI is pulling from.
Right.
But I wonder what would happen if you had a digital book available, then it would be pulling from you and citing you, maybe.
Right. Well, I think it does. And then it knows my writing style now. So that's another thing that's happening is that if I wanted to write a companion book, it could probably write itself because it actually takes like my tone, everything from my first book.
So tell us, let's get to your second book because I didn't even know about that one until a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, The Brain Under Attack?
Yeah, because it wasn't about ADHD. It was about PANDAS. So like,
yeah. So I co-wrote that book. So there was Epidemic Answers is an organization that's really great. It's actually a good resource. Like if people want to go on and find a practitioner, it's epidemicanswers.org, I think. So I was on the board of Epidemic Answers for a long time. It's just it got to be too much with my book and all the writing I was doing and all the teaching I was doing and being a therapist. And I also have therapists now working under me, so it just got too much. Anyway, but Epidemic Answers, we co-wrote the book Brain Under Attack. So it's specifically a parent's guide, a natural parent's guide to dealing with PANS and PANDAS. Because again, the mainstream doctors will want you on antibiotics for a very long time, because that's, it's a lot of it's about pathogens and about Lyme disease and other illnesses. And so a lot of, doctors will want to put you on antibiotics for 3 years. And we talk about the microbiome.
And kill all the good bacteria.
I'm like, no, we're not going that direction. So I found a doctor of osteopathic medicine, a DO, that was actually, she was a gastroenterologist and a DO, which was a fantastic combination, hard to find, very expensive, but she agreed with me. She said, oh no, Elena did have a particular bad bacteria, Klebsiella or some other bad bacteria that was very resistant to antibiotics. And so she put her on like this very special antibiotic that she's never had before, only 1 round. And that was it for the antibiotics, which I was like, eh. She's like, no, I promise. Then we'll rebuild the gut. I was like, okay. So I'd much rather go in that direction. Because I know that I hear I'm doing all this probiotics, and like antibiotics is working against, they say it could take you 5 years to recover from 1 round of antibiotics. Like, that's kind of scary. So yeah, so a lot of the mainstream doctors, if they are treating PANS and PANDAS, are very often, they're also using something called IVIG, which is plasma from other donors. So you might have 100 donors from healthy donors. In my mind, though, who is a healthy donor? So I'm like, don't really trust that.
That's a lot, though.
Right? So some insurances will cover it. Most will not. But, it's a very expensive treatment. I don't know how long it lasts for. But it's basically like giving you the antibodies of all these things and supposedly like building up your immune system. But I don't trust it. Like, again, I have my skeptical mind about anything that's coming from mainstream, especially after COVID, because I don't know what they screen for. Like, do they screen for spike proteins and all the things we're trying to eliminate from Elena's body? Because that was part of her problem. I think she had too many spike protein. So I'm like, I had a client of mine who also had PANS, and they went that route. Also with the functional medicine doctor, but very heavy with the antibiotics, very heavy with IVIG. And she started getting like HIV antibodies. And they're like, oh, this is a good thing. I'm just like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Because in their mind, antibodies means you have immunity.
Okay.
Right? So,
but it also means you've had exposure.
But it also means you have exposure. Right. So I'm just like, I don't know. So for me, that wasn't the avenue we went in. I know a lot of families that did go that route and found it very successful, and they were happy they did it, and it changed their child's life. So I have no judgment, but at the same time, I just don't trust it.
Yeah.
But that's also a very mainstream, psych meds, steroids, IVIG, antibiotics. So, where I would rather do herbal medicine, because herbal medicine's interesting in that it's very intuitive, where it will go in and maybe, like, you take oregano, right? So oregano is a fantastic antimicrobial, also good for yeast infections, which can also cause issues. Will go and kill the yeast, but preserve the good bacteria. It's very intelligent. So that's why I like plant medicine better, because pharma just took plant medicine, recreated it synthetically, and called it their discovery, right? Just go back to oregano. So, yeah.
I'm laughing here because I'm trying to relate to my kids some more.
Yeah.
And I didn't play video games from like college up until like a year ago. And I just wanted to play a video game with my son, and I started playing Final Fantasy VII. And the method of getting potions and healing is picking up herbs and spices.
Yeah.
And the one that I'm missing the most is oregano right now. And if you
hilarious.
get enough oregano, then you can make the giga potion that heals you the most. So it's like,
That's funny.
even video games are like, you got to go find the herbs as you're wandering around in the map in the world, picking up all the herbs and stuff, because it
That's
heals
the
you.
healing. Oh, yeah.
I have not seen any prescription drugs while wandering around
Right?
in the world.
No, it's so true. Well, it's in the Bible, too. It said, we've given you all the plants in nature to heal anything.
It's called science, evolution, a planet that's been here for
a long time. And like, I didn't realize that the enzyme, Tamiflu is basically Chinese star anise.
Okay.
Is the enzyme that they use in Tamiflu. Now, Tamiflu has many side effects, including psychiatric symptoms in adolescence, is one of the big warnings about Tamiflu. People think, I'm just going to take Tamiflu. I'm like, just take Chinese star anise. or you could take quinine, which is the potent ingredient in tonic water, but you get it in the concentrated form. And that's so great for, antimicrobial as well. Like that was like for COVID, it's anti-parasitic. So again, why aren't we doing these things? Why isn't that in our toolbox of things? Well, if you look at my house, I have a whole, I should show pictures. I have, I can open up a apothecary store right now. I mean, and it's all nicely labeled, but like everything from parasites to viruses to, there's a remedy for it.
Yeah.
And again, pharma just took the recipe from nature and recreated it synthetically, called it their discovery with a whole host of side effects. I mean, I wouldn't just start taking herbs either because it's very strong medicine and it was never meant for long-term use. Well, right. It's just meant to take care of something and heal it and then move on and get off them,
That knowledge is just important to have because it seems like fewer and fewer people have that knowledge of which are the herbs that are helpful.
Yep.
There was, back to the video game, like the mushroom that killed someone. But mushrooms can be healthy and they can be very toxic. So there's good plants and bad plants and someone's got to know the difference.
Well, I took a whole mushroom course. So I learned the difference.
What is the difference?
If you pick up a mushroom and it smells toxic, it is. It's wild. But if you pick it up and it has like a nutty, fruity flavor, it's probably okay.
Interesting.
The ones that grow on trees are more medicinal, right? So you see like turkey tail is really good for autoimmune. Has a lot of beta-glucans. So you want to find mushrooms with like high beta-glucan. It's anti-cancer, antimicrobial, everything good. The only thing is it is high histamine. So if you have too many histamine problems, sometimes mushrooms aren't the best to go to, but very healthy for you. And yeah, I mean, herbs are really, could be, like you said, herbs too, could be toxic to the liver over too long of a time. So you have to kind of know, and you have to be educated on it. But, I think the most important, like when you said, like arming yourself with knowledge, I think the difference between people that were really scared of COVID and those that really weren't scared of COVID was that knowledge.
So when that just first started happening in March, I remember studying the coronavirus in undergrad. So I went and grabbed my medical microbiology book and just started reading. And I know they said, this one's special, but it's like, but it seems like exercise and vitamin D and being outside is all you need to do.
Yes.
And we're not supposed to do that.
Right.
That doesn't make any sense. We decided to just kind of like be rebels during the shutdown where you're not allowed to leave. We went up to because we're just tired of being stuck inside all day, We drove up to a lake that's nearby and there's a public beach and it was all roped up like it was a crime scene, like police tape everywhere. And the parking lot was down the street from a neighborhood, so you had to walk through the neighborhood to get to the beach. And it felt like a zombie apocalypse. You could hear people in the homes, but there was nobody outside. You get to the beach, sad. And then it's like police. We're just going outside for a walk,
and there's no one around. It
was nuts.
It was really nuts. Well, I had a good friend of mine whose son was on the spectrum. He was 22 years old. He was in a local hospital on a ventilator with COVID, 20-something. And I called the mom and I said, you need to call them and find out what his vitamin D level is. And she's like, oh, you think so? I'm like, yes. I go immediately. So, of course, she had to call like 15 times. No one was calling her back. It was all that craziness. And she finally got a PA on the phone. And she said, please, begging. They said, fine, we'll do it. His vitamin D level was a 7. Right? He was an inside gaming autistic child person that doesn't get the sun, And and a 7. So even the mainstream doctors thought that was a little low because in their world, 30 is good. Well, in the functional medicine world, 50 to 80 is better. So when they saw it was a 7, they gave him IV vitamin D. Do you know that kid was off a ventilator within 24 hours and home within 2.5 days of that?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She still credits me to saving his life. Okay. Thank you. At least I helped one person. I'm like, vitamin D was like the most important immune boosting thing.
Vitamin
and for depression.
D is a hormone that regulates a ton of activities. And as a species, we've spent the majority of the last million years outside.
Right.
So if our body develops a system of regulating itself based off of the sun and light, and then all of a sudden you turn that off,
Right.
It would be shocking if something bad didn't happen.
Absolutely. And our whole circadian rhythm.
But stay inside.
But stay inside and don't look at the sun. Yeah. And wear a lot of sunscreen.
Yeah.
The chemical one, the one that causes more cancer than the sun. It's crazy. Like we've gotten so far away from actually what's true that no one knows what's true anymore. And now everything's pseudoscience and like if you need sunscreen, great. But like use mineral sunscreen, use zinc oxide. Do not use like the regular, copper tone chemical sunscreen. It's so bad. And if you can tolerate it, stay in the sun. You need it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, deficiencies of nutrients across the board has been so underrated, So I know your product, better than fish oil, omegas, fish oil / poly, whatever it's called. That's one of the most important things that we don't get anything of either. That's another nutrient that most of us are deficient in. We don't eat enough fish. We don't get enough of this at all.
Well, yeah, I mean, the fish oils, we don't eat a lot of fish. No. I noticed this is the one thing that I couldn't do. So in your book, you talked about sardines.
Oh, yeah.
I can't do
lots of calcium, too.
Sardines are like the best. Like,
yeah.
I can get, I like sushi. I think we have a great omega product. Mm-hmm. But truth be told, if everyone just had sardines, I'd be out of business.
Right.
But I can't do that.
Listen, you can make it like tuna fish. It doesn't taste that different.
I can barely do tuna. I love fresh fish, and my son loves fishing, and we tried fishing a couple of times, but sushi. But so like the reason why omega-3s are important, and this, is because your brain is mostly fat.
Right.
And the most important fat in your brain are omega-3s.
Yeah.
And so if you don't have that in your diet, your body doesn't make it very well. It's very inefficient.
Yeah.
And then one of the things that, with all the processed food, there was a thought in the 90s of food fortification, adding the nutrients, which seems like a good idea because it's like people are deficient in nutrients. So let's just add in, some iron and some magnesium in their cornflakes.
Right.
And all cereals. Thing is it's the magnesium salts, the elemental iron that is cheap to just throw in there. Folic acid, which is
toxic,
stable, very inflammatory for people with the MTHFR mutation, and it's not the form that people get. So it's like, but we're giving people nutrients, and it's like. Not really.
No, and they're not bioidentical, so they're not going to get absorbed by the body. Right, you said cheaply sourced, so you're like getting rocks that aren't your body's not even assimilating.
That's what got me into it, is finding the bioavailable form. Actually, before Riley was diagnosed, I was a patent attorney working on nutritional forms or forms that were better absorbed, which is why they were trying to get a patent on it, because they had better potential for providing the nutrients.
Right. Absolutely. And we need it for our brain, like you said. And we also need it for inflammation management. So during COVID, I'm like,
so much
take omegas, because it also acts as a natural blood thinner. Right. So the only time people have to be a little careful if they're on blood thinners, because it will kind of thin out the blood a little bit in a healthy way.
Well, there was a Harvard study that showed that if you have a deficiency in omega-3 fatty acids, there's there's higher mortality than if you're a smoker.
Right.
Like it has that big of an impact. Yeah. That if you're a smoker and your omega-3 index is good, then that's better than having a low omega-3 index.
Wow. It's amazing. It's so important, and it's so underrated. Nobody's taking these supplements and doing what they have to do.
So my kids will eat sushi. working on the vegetables.
And I'm always like worried with the sushi too and the raw things. So I'm like, oh, do we have to take antiparasitics after that?
No, if you're buying from the right place.
Yeah,
like,
well, exactly. Well, it's like anything, right?
I think that's what's scary is that sushi is becoming so ubiquitous that like I don't know where some of this is. Like,
yeah, it's like, where is this coming from? Yeah. So.
I like the sushi restaurants where you actually see them cutting it and making it for you. Where you walk into the store and they're like all prepared and who knows how long they've been sitting out. Like I don't
know. That gets me a little concerned.
But I also like grilling salmon, and I've got some rubs and ways of making it at home that are pretty good.
Pretty good. Yeah, I love fish, but I probably don't make enough. We all don't eat it enough. It's like, that's why, people say, well, if you eat a balanced diet, you don't need supplementations. Like, we don't realize that even when we're doing a good job and eating all the veg, it's not enough still, And our foods are so depleted too. So it's like, oh, well, unless you're growing it at your house and the most of, you eat a broccoli, you're not getting the level of calcium you used to get in broccoli.
Yeah.
So we just have to be a little more mindful.
So one of the, I think we've covered a lot of the things that we were going to cover, but trauma.
Yeah.
And how trauma impacts, as far as I know, all of it. Like, it basically exacerbates or causes a lot of different mental health issues.
Oh, absolutely. So on my website, I have lots of articles on like things about COVID, like how to heal COVID and, what to do if you get a virus, right? That got a lot of views and a lot of criticism, by the way, during COVID. But I also have an article about that on my page about when trauma looks like ADHD, I think is the name of the title of the article. And yeah, I mean, anxiety, like what is ADHD? Like a lot of times it's high anxiety. And so what's causing the high anxiety? It could be the food we're eating or the lack of food we're eating. It could be toxicity. But again, the other piece of it is what's happening at home. What kind of trauma have they been involved with? Who their parents are, what's happening, so different life events. Also, stress like reduces our immune system response tremendously. So anytime people are under chronic stress of any kind, and people think of trauma when they come to see me for therapy, they'll, I didn't really have any trauma. Really? Like, people think of that. They think like, I wasn't in war and I wasn't, in a major car accident and
so
my
you're
dad
causing
didn't beat
everyone
me.
else's trauma. That's,
yeah.
That's what's going on.
And I'm like, and I always say, 1,000 paper cuts is sometimes worse than that one car accident or 1,000 paper cuts hurts. So sometimes it's seemingly small, but it's bigger than people realize. There's attachment trauma, there's, grief trauma. I mean, there's so many things happening in this world right now, and people are being affected by, the news, the media. Like, people don't realize people who have kids on the spectrum. It's trauma. People don't see it as trauma. So lately I've gotten a lot of parents actually coming for my EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, which is amazing for trauma. So I definitely highly recommend anyone listening to look for a practitioner that does EMDR because it's really helpful.
I remember reading that. And there's actually a lot of data behind that. Do you know mechanistically like why that is? It's almost like it is a way of calming the brain, because isn't it?
Yeah.
Describe what it is, because if I remember right, it's like very monotonous.
So basically, it's really easy to explain. So it's basically, lowers your parasympathetic nervous system, right? And the mechanism
That's what I was going to say.
is like pacing. Right. So why people pace is because they're doing eye movement desensitization without realizing it. So when your eyes are doing like this kind of thing back and forth, what it's doing actually, and when people go for a run and they have the bilateral stimulation and they're moving their hands and their feet like this, they're doing EMDR without realizing it. And that's why when people go out for a run or go for a walk, they feel better.
Start running again.
So it's fascinating. But basically the mechanism is that our amygdala, which is our emotional brain, gets taken hijack in a situation of trauma, and it whatever fires together wires together. So our emotional brain, which we'll just call the right brain, it's actually here, but we'll just call the right brain the left brain. So the right brain is emotional. It's getting it's firing. They see a car, they immediately see a flashback of the accident they were in, so forth and so on. The left brain says, "What are you talking about? Like, you've driven for 40 years. You've gotten one accident this whole time. You didn't hurt anyone. No one died. You know, the logical part of the brain shuts down. So what we do in EMDR is we're inviting the emotional brain to activate. At the same time, we're creating a cognitive interweave, it's called, where we're actually introducing the left brain, logical brain, into the equation. So now the two neural networks can connect together. And so the person can think about the trauma, and all of a sudden they're not having the same visceral reaction and being like, oh, yeah, I'm okay.
That makes a lot of sense,
because that's basically what it is.
The way I understood the amygdala from the prefrontal cortex is like, you know, back in the day where, you know, you're out in the jungle and a lion jumps out to get you,
right.
You don't have time to think about how you're going to respond. So the primal part of the brain is emotional. It's reaction. Right. It's your reflex.
Right.
And you're not thinking. So you become very reactive. So it would make sense that if you have had a trauma, like a lion jumping out at you,
right.
You get into the react mode first more frequently. But it literally like short circuits the prefrontal cortex, but then it makes sense that what your goal is trying to connect them back again, right. So that you don't keep reacting, that you think you're able to process it through logically.
Right.
You're not actually in the jungle. You're just at Disneyland in Animal Kingdom, right. And you're it's not going to get you.
Right. Because that's the reality of it. Right. So we try to bring that back. And it works miraculously. And then what ends up happening is if they get triggered again, it's not as bad. Or that might be part of the trauma that we haven't yet processed. So it's really about processing through it. Where if you have an animal in the wild that gets attacked, like say you have a deer, it gets attacked by, they shake it off violently. You ever see in the wild, they shake it off. Or if someone just finished, they were in a car accident, they get out of the car and they scream. It's actually the body's way of trying to release and get it out of themselves. What happens if people don't process trauma well is that it gets stuck in their body. So it becomes like a physical, so then they can get sick. They can, have, illnesses. They could, not be able to sleep. Like all these symptoms start showing up because they've just stuffed it down. Sometimes it comes up as addiction, right? They just keep stuffing it down, or eating disorder. They keep stuffing their, eating. So it just stays in the body. So it's a very physical thing too, because it actually helps it come out. And we see evidence of that. Some people throw up after a session, that's ultimate detox, right? Some people cry, during it, after it. Some people, scream, so because the body is looking to release it. It's not good to be holding all that for that long. And then they don't realize that it's sometimes attachment trauma. So they don't understand that every time the husband doesn't take out the garbage, they have this overreaction, so to speak. And that's only because their core needs weren't met. And because, garbage equals if he loved me, he would take it out, right? Because it's never about the garbage, what's it representing.
Yeah.
So if we could do EMDR on the attachment stuff, this is like because when your dad was 5 years old, he was always at work. He was never there for you. That's really where, in our subconscious mind, we can get down to it and heal that.
That's interesting because it makes sense. Like you want to validate that the person actually feels that way. They are feeling that they don't love them because they're not taking the trash out. And to argue with me is like, you're like not validating what I'm actually feeling. And it's like, okay, yes, you are feeling that.
Right.
But let's tie in the prefrontal cortex. Let's tie in this logical part. Mm-hmm. That doesn't actually mean that.
Right.
You feel that. But let's unite this.
But we have to have the tappers, which is like some people use a light bar, which is very distracting. I have a tactile tappers, like it's like beeps, 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 beeps. And by doing that, they keep their eyes closed so they could visualize it. Because like a parent could come over and say, hey, but the car accident's fine. You're fine. It doesn't go in, right? So people could try to convince us that we're safe. But until we can do the EMDR where our neural networks can connect, we're not going to believe it at the core. Because if our belief system is nobody loves me or I'm not safe, or that usually goes back to years of other things. And that's what we call a complex trauma. So if someone comes in with a car accident, but then I find out that maybe the father was driving around drunk all the time when the child was 7, 8, 9 years old, it's more complex, right? So then we have to tap that. So it's really amazing, and it speeds up the therapy. People aren't in my office for years on end. You know, it's much quicker, it's more productive, and you actually are activating the emotional mind too. Because a lot of people come in and they tell their horrific story with no emotion at all. We're not going to get very far.
I will say, when I was looking at treatment for trauma, that I didn't find anything that said it doesn't work. Like, it was all enormously positive.
Yeah.
It was like everything. Like, nutrients will help some people with ADHD, some people with autism. Sometimes it's something else, but it's my understanding that is very effective.
Very effective. And especially if anxiety is the root of ADD. Because, you know, is it ADD? Like, what is ADD, right? It's like a distractibility. Like, could it be that the person is so anxious they're not actually in their body, right? Because they tend to disassociate. People disassociate all the time. Even when they're on video games all the time, it's a form of disassociation.
Oh, absolutely.
People don't see it. I mean, we need a little of that. Everyone does. But, like, in people that have been traumatized live there.
Yeah.
And if you live there, you're not going to be here to talk about, like, and then we're trying to get them to pay attention in class. Like,
so one of I think video games might be the worst type of example, because like, it's in some sense no different than binge watching a TV show. You're getting that dopamine, but one of the reasons why people with ADHD can focus with video games is because ADHD is often kind of a dysregulation of the executive function.
Right.
Time blindness is a huge thing.
Yeah.
And it's not having consequences. When you're binge watching a Netflix show, there's no consequences. When you're playing a video game, you are constantly, like, you stay captivated because there is a consequence. So it's not just entertainment. It's not just the dopamine. You are activating the part of the brain that needs to be activated to have an action consequence that goes around for hours, and so you're like, it's time to go. You gotta get off.
Yeah.
But I think that, so I, in a previous life, was an attorney, and I was deposing an expert for a medical food for depression. I don't know if you've ever heard of Deplin.
I have, actually.
So Deplin is a medical food that helps people with depression. It's 15 milligrams of L-methylfolate, and I was deposing the expert because I had the background, and after we probably finished, he didn't have too much with the case. It was like 4 hours, but I was just curious. So I just kept asking him questions in the deposition for, like, depression, because I had a roommate in college that had depression, clinical depression, and I just thought that would be terrible, that like, you can't be happy, like, you're never happy. And he's like, well, I appreciate when things are good, like, but I don't feel it. And so I asked the expert, and I was like, so what causes this? And I think it's fair to say this is similar with ADHD, with anxiety. I don't know about autism, but there is a genetic predisposition. So some people are more predisposed, but you could have, like, you could go your whole life and not have depression, but undergo a trauma, a divorce, a bankruptcy, death in the family, something very traumatic that causes an epigenetic change that affects, don't hold me to this, but I think he said, like, your serotonin regulation, but it had some epigenetic effect, which, when you were talking about glutamates, that kind of sounded like there was an overlap there. So with ADHD, I think there's a genetic predisposition, and you could have trauma, you could have bad learning environment. Forget I said that. You could have some other thing exacerbate that one symptom. And then if you add on inflammation, and you add on a bad diet, and you add in no activity and no sleep, you are now presenting to where your brain is just really struggling.
Yep, absolutely. It's like brain on fire at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so it's like, and that's the complicated thing, is that you have to sort of address all things. And, you know, we're kind of in a lazy society. They're like, just give me the drugs, right? I mean,
Can I just pick up one thing on the pharmacy on the way home?
Right. And sometimes that's fine. Like if that's what people want to do. In my mind too, it's like if you're 60 years old and you're having depression and you want to like, whatever, like, my focus always was the children though, because I was like, well, their brains are still developing and like, what are we not addressing? And, whatever. But I mean, so I know some people that, it helps them. I had a good friend who lost her son to suicide. Like, yeah, she's going to be on meds. Like, I get it. Like possibly all the food in the world, diet in the world, and all the therapy in the world isn't going to make her feel any joy right now, So, I mean, I never.
I think the role for meds in that situation might be where you hope in any acute situation, like you said, it helps you manage your life so that you can start doing the other things that are going to have that effect.
Right.
Don't let your depression cause you to sleep all day or miss your job or not take care of your family or not eat.
Right. Exactly. Because then it just, making the situation a lot worse. So yeah, I mean, I think it has its place, but again, maybe you can get off it eventually. Maybe it's not forever. Maybe it's just for now. So
well, yeah. I have enjoyed talking with you again.
Yeah, you too. It's good to see you.
Got a lot.
Are
you planning on? Are there any other book ideas?
I don't know. In this world, I feel like in the ADHD world, like who has time to read a book? Like I was just like, I don't know. Everyone wants a reel. Everyone wants a quick. I mean, I feel like if I wrote the book again, like would I have done it in separate chapters, like sleep, ADHD, picky eating, like would I have? I don't know.
You really could just put out content in chapter form addressing everything. Yeah. And then when someone wants to know what role does, how can I get better sleep or what other things?
Because that's what the world is. It's like we have a problem we want a solution for.
Yeah.
It's 400 and something pages. I think it's super easy to read. Most people that read it go, I read it in a night. But again, you have to be focused and you have to, it is on book on tape too.
But it's also a good reference.
It's a great reference.
I used it for a long time with the nutrients, but going back to it because I can't remember all of that.
It's a lot, and it is true. Like the way you read it is the way a lot of people read it because they say, oh, I have a problem. Like, let me find the chapter on genetic mutations or let me find the chapter on nutritional deficiencies. And then there's those people that went back to the beginning. And then when they did read the beginning, they go, oh my God, that's my child.
Exactly. There's more context. Like there's way more context
in the beginning, right?
To what I'm going through, even though this is someone else's story. And I think that's why I like podcasts and just putting content out is because the narrative transcends with a lot of people.
And I think about, I have a couple of things on my website that I've done videos that I've have up there, for sale for cheap, on PANDAS. I have one for a 2-hour one that I did. But I almost think I should just put more out there like that, because I think those like videos and podcasts, I think that's what people are interested in. And it's also the story and it's relatable.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I can do those small little things. Like,
and there's a lot of people that aren't putting all the information out. So
yes.
If you have it, you got to share it.
I have to share it. And so I have been, generously sharing most of what I have over the years. I don't, it's interesting because, we have a change of guard right now. If Kennedy does accomplish a lot of the things that we're talking about, my book might be obsolete. Well, maybe not completely, but a lot of it is about the toxic foods and the, this and that and the other thing.
Just get the rights back to the name.
I know. I don't know how to do that. I need an attorney. Do you know any good ones? I mean, because they don't even.
It's been a while since I've done IP law.
I mean, honestly, I don't even have so much so that I don't even hear from them ever. I know the book sells, but I'm sure it's, again, people have short attention spans. They need to read my book.
I'll have to review the contract.
I know.
Review the contract.
I'll be sending you the contract.
See where they breached.
They had to have breached somewhere. Probably where they don't really do anything for me. I mean, much. The nicest people, but it's like even if healing without hurting, like if I were to do anything with that title, like I have to be careful, like when I do a presentation and if I charge money for it, like I have to change the title because then obviously they have rights to a percentage of it. So, I mean, that's my title, but it's at the same time when I do a presentation, I call it the brain gut connection or I call it like something else. So, which is fine because it's kind of like my chapter is kind of broken down anyway.
Well, it's pithy and it's to the point and it conveys a lot that it is all about living a healthy life and having a healthy mind with as few side effects as possible.
Exactly. And just like cutting, and when you say cut things out, sugar is a big one, right? And that's a hard one to cut out.
It's going to be the worst.
But I mean, there's healthy, like fruit is good sugar, right? So there's ways to get the carbs because our brain needs carbs, but it's like how much? And I'm
just saying it's the worst because it's everywhere.
Oh yeah, and it's in everything, especially if it's processed. And
now I'm saying more and more that like even Alzheimer's is almost like diabetes of the mind.
Well, isn't it diabetes type 3? They're identifying that now as like a diabetes type 3.
I thought I heard something like that.
Right?
I haven't.
Yeah, so if you look up diabetes, they'll say Alzheimer's, dementia. Besides the toxic load and God knows what else, the brain is dealing with. But yeah, blood sugar. So one of the things I didn't write in my book, I guess if I were to update it again, like, intermittent fasting, right? I don't know about 5-year-olds doing that, but I think it resets our whole metabolic rate and resets our whole metabolic system and our sugar regulation.
So I've done intermittent fasting a lot.
Yeah.
And when I was best at it, I would eat lunch, like a late lunch at like 1 and then stop eating at like 7.
Right.
And then I'd go probably 14 hours, sometimes 16 hours without eating.
Yep.
But that means in the morning when you wake up, your blood sugar, like you've burned it all off.
Right.
And then you're burning ketones. And I was never more awake in the morning than when my brain was fueled by ketones.
Yes. So I've been doing that actually in the last 3 months. I lost about 20 pounds doing this.
Yeah,
and,
lowers your insulin.
Lowers insulin because I didn't like my blood work. Here I am eating healthy, writing the book about it, and I get my blood work back, and I'm like, huh? I think, I wrote a whole article about how the brain needs fat, right? My cholesterol was high. Now I don't believe it's as high as mainstream wants me to believe it is, but still higher for me. Gain weight wasn't like me for all these years. I've been pretty like same weight forever. So I just started doing 2 meals a day, not eating breakfast, starting to eat around 1 o'clock and then maybe 5:30, 6 o'clock. And that would be my last meal of the day. Protein, fruits and vegetables. That's it. I cut out all the, the rice and all this just sugar, just cut out the bad sugar. And, I feel so much better. I couldn't believe it. Again, like you kind of live in a feeling kind of not good and don't realize it. So when I started to do this, I was like, wait a minute.
You feel good and you didn't realize that you weren't feeling good.
Right. And I was like, wow, I was really brain fogged. Oh my God, I had like a little bit of joint pain starting. And that's not like me. Like I never had joint pain ever. And so I have to say there's always, and if you're eating decently well, it's an easier jump. If you're eating McDonald's, well, I'm sure what I've been doing would be a little bit more difficult for people.
And I think a good word of advice would be if you do want to make a major change, to do it gradually because you'll have a better chance of maintaining it and keeping it. Anyone that goes from a McDonald's diet to a Whole Foods diet overnight is not going to be on a Whole Foods diet very long.
No, exactly. So it is about cutting the dyes first and looking at, reading all the labels and trying to like eat better, like, whatever the budget allows for, but like trying to, go to local farms and get, different, things.
Try some sardines.
Try some sardines. It's actually really good for you. It has lots of calcium too, which a lot of us are deficient in. So.
Well, it was a pleasure. Thanks
Great
again.
Seeing you,
and let us know if you have another book come out.
I will. Definitely.
Thanks.
Thanks.